This video is sponsored by Stamps.com. Free up more time this holiday season by going to Stamps.com/companyman for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. The link is in the description. California Pizza Kitchen, it's all in the name, right? It is a national chain of casual dining restaurants that has not been doing too well. Since 2011, about half of them have shut down in the United States, going from 265 locations all the way down to 131. But probably the most evident proof of the decline is the fact that the company filed for bankruptcy in July of 2020. I mean, that is never a good sign, right? So obviously the pandemic had a negative effect on a casual dining restaurant where 78% of their customers would typically dine in the restaurant, but I do want to point out that half of the closings had already occurred in the years leading up to the pandemic, so there was already existing issues. Now, considering California Pizza Kitchen has had many different owners over its 4 decades of history, it can be difficult to put it all together into a comprehensive picture that explains how everything got to where it is today. So, I think it would be valuable to separately go through each of these owners and talk about the impact, positive or negative, that they had on the brand. Starting off with the founders, Larry Flax and Rick Rosenfield. Now, these are 2 unusual people to start a pizza chain, considering that both of them started out their careers as lawyers. They met each other in 1970 when they were working as federal prosecutors in Los Angeles. After a few years, they left to start their own firm where they became criminal defense lawyers. It was a stressful job that involved a lot of traveling that gave them exposure to different restaurants and foods from around the country. After more than a decade of running their firm, they had a particularly frustrating case involving currency fraud that ended in a hung jury. That right there was like the final straw that motivated them to transition into a new career that they felt more passionate about. It took a lot to make it happen. They took out second mortgages on their homes and convinced 22 of their friends to invest a total of $300,000 into opening the first California Pizza Kitchen in Beverly Hills, California. See, in the 1980s, California-style pizza was becoming the next big thing. A popular chef, Wolfgang Puck, had recently opened his restaurant called Spago that was known for serving these unconventional pizzas. I'm talking about toppings that you would never even expect to see on a pizza. Well, considering Spago was a little pricey and would sometimes take weeks to get a table, Flax and Rosenfield figured that people would respond to a much more accessible version of it. They actually consulted with the pizza chef from Spago to create their original menu that may have been a little too far out there, with toppings like rabbit sausage that people did not have much interest in ordering. The only menu item that did well was the barbecue chicken pizza that they practically used as the foundation to rebuild that menu. Today, that barbecue chicken pizza is still the thing that they are most known for, in addition to other unique creations like the Thai chicken pizza and a bunch of other signature dishes that are not even pizza at all. Aside from the menu, they became known for their open kitchen plans where customers could see the food being prepared in special ovens, and for good service that was fueled by overall positive treatment of the employees. Notably, in 1991, it became the first national chain to get rid of its smoking section due to concerns about employees being exposed to secondhand smoke. By 1992, they were looking for ways to raise money to open more restaurants, and were heavily considering a public stock offering where a portion of the company would be sold to the public. Well, before that was able to happen, they were approached by a much larger company that became the next owner on the list, PepsiCo. I know this might sound a little bit random, but it made perfect sense at the time. Pepsi was already the owner of multiple national restaurant brands, including Pizza Hut. I recommend this other video I made if you want to hear more about that, but Pepsi was looking to further build that segment by acquiring this emerging chain that looked promising. Larry Flax later referred to it as a deal we couldn't refuse, where Pepsi bought half the company that was quickly raised to 67% of it, giving them majority control. Flax and Rosenfield remained in charge, but Pepsi forced the change from serving Coke to Pepsi products in the restaurants and had this aggressive plan to expand the concept. Over the next 2 years, California Pizza Kitchen almost tripled in size, with new restaurants opening in major cities around the country, but it was a little rushed. Remember, this is a restaurant that sells unusual food. The pizza there is a lot different than what you would find at any of the leading chains, like Pizza Hut. So comparatively, when opening a new restaurant, people may not be as receptive to it. meaning it could be trickier to find the right area with the right customer base. Flax and Rosenfield admitted that many of them were opened in neighborhoods that were not ideal, and on top of that, some of the ingredients were changed to save money, hurting their reputation. Honestly, looking back at this, the Pepsi acquisition may have already been the beginning of the end for California Pizza Kitchen. It led to some of its first major missteps that were soon followed by more major missteps. By 1997, Pepsi was looking to exit the restaurant industry altogether. Again, the other video talks more about it, but part of that plan involved selling California Pizza Kitchen to a private equity firm. I do want to mention that it was under their ownership in 1998 when California Pizza Kitchen made a licensing deal with Kraft to sell a line of frozen pizzas to be sold in supermarkets. That license was later sold to Nestle in 2010 as part of a much larger deal that included multiple frozen pizza brands, including DiGiorno and Tombstone. Also during that time, Flax and Rosenfield were replaced by a new CEO named Fred Hipp while remaining on the board, and there were some tensions there. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my list because in the year 2000, California Pizza Kitchen became a public company. There was an initial public stock offering that raised over $72 million, most of which was used to pay down debt that they had accumulated from expanding too aggressively. And then, unfortunately, it seems like Fred Hipp led them back into the same trap, where they again went into debt by expanding too aggressively. It was almost the exact same mistake as before, where they made a bunch of bad real estate deals and sacrificed quality to get a bunch of new restaurants opened. In 2003, likely due to all of the issues that the company was having, Flax and Rosenfield were reinstated as leaders of the company and really slowed things down. To me, this seems like a much stronger period for California Pizza Kitchen. These two had learned from experience and had more of a personal attachment to the restaurant, so they were careful with their decisions. The company was finally taking more time to research new locations, improving the existing ones, and quickly raising comparable store sales. But all of that success was short-lived, because by 2009, sales were already falling again, mostly due to the recession. 70% of their restaurants were in or around shopping malls that saw a dramatic decline in traffic, plus casual dining in general was hurt by the economy. Fast casual concepts had already been taking away market share for over a decade, and this was kind of accelerating the process. In short, it was an unfortunate time to be a chain of mall-based casual dining restaurants. All of the chaos led to another change in ownership in 2011 when it was bought by another private equity firm. This time, it was sold for $470 million, the highest price of any of these acquisitions, in part because California Pizza Kitchen was around its peak number of locations at the time. This sale caused Flax and Rosenfield to step down from the company for good, and despite some respectable attempts, the new leaders have not had great results. Truly, I would say that most of their issues were brewing in the previous decade and just continued getting worse. Declining mall traffic, customers shifting away from casual dining restaurants, and more people getting food delivered and eating at home. I mean, pizza is like the ultimate delivery food, right? So as more people were having their pizzas delivered by the leading chains, fewer people were dining in at pizza restaurants like California Pizza Kitchen. Even looking back at Pizza Hut, they have aggressively shifted away from dine-in locations in favor of ones that only allow for pickup and deliveries. I think it's clear that trends in the industry have been working against California Pizza Kitchen, but they have been trying to fight it. Maybe the most aggressive attempt was in 2015 with their next chapter transformation, as they call it. It was pretty big. They remodeled a bunch of the restaurants, they trimmed down the everyday menu while adding seasonal options, and overall trying to appear more modern and give the customers more reason to visit. In 2018, they were the first national chain to serve their pizza with a cauliflower crust, but I do not think that any of it was too effective. Meanwhile, they were sinking back into debt because I imagine it must have been difficult finding money to pay for all of these menu changes and remodeling efforts while sales were continuing to fall. So in 2020, they were already in a vulnerable position when the pandemic caused an even more dramatic drop in sales to a point where it was overwhelming. They were over $400 million in debt, couldn't afford to keep up with their debt payments, so they filed for bankruptcy. The biggest effects of this bankruptcy was the fact that their debt was more than cut in half to a more manageable level, and there were new owners, the debt holders. Yeah, it was essentially a debt for equity deal where the people that had lent them money forgave some of the debt in exchange for ownership of the company. And there have been continued efforts to revive things, including a loyalty program, a plant-based pizza that has been named Don't Call Me Chicken. How could you not like that name? They signed a new deal to have their branded salad dressings in stores. You may have seen those recently, other various attempts, but again, not great results. They have averaged about 10 closings per year since the bankruptcy, so there's not much to indicate a comeback here. The latest plan that they have announced is to franchise a bunch of locations, which is a strategy that they have mostly avoided within the US, so that could be a simple enough way to get their name back out there and regrow the brand. But of course, so much of the success of the plan depends on how selective they are when it comes to choosing who will be running these restaurants. I'm just observing that every major attempt to expand so far has had poor results. It almost feels like they had to force it to get as big as they once were. So then I have to ask, is the concept appealing enough to justify hundreds of locations? What I mean is, if these previous plans had been executed with more care and they had built a stronger foundation, would California Pizza Kitchen be much larger today, or was it always sort of meant to level off and have a smaller presence? Something to think about, but first, let me know in the comments, what do you see for the future of California Pizza Kitchen? Are they doing enough to revive the brand, and do you think it is even a brand worth reviving? If you are a regular customer, please tell me, what is it that keeps you coming back? Do you like one of their unique pizzas, or something else on the menu? Is it the atmosphere, the staff, or what else? And any other thoughts you have about California Pizza Kitchen, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Stamps.com is today's sponsor, and it is a perfect time of year to talk about them. The holidays can be a stressful time for any business, and printing postage online can be an easy way to free up some much needed time that you can use to focus on everything else that needs to be done. And trust me, there is always something else that needs to be done. From small businesses to multi-location organizations, Stamps.com handles all of your mailing and shipping needs wherever, whenever. Meaning that you can cut out all of the lines, traffic, and waiting that comes along with taking that dreadful trip to the post office. Seriously, all you need is a computer and a printer to get rates that you just cannot find anywhere else, like up to 89% off USPS and UPS. To sign up, all you have to do is go to stamps.com/companyman for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching.